Hey guys, it's Michael from Gredio, and welcome to the first class in pricing your food product. Right now we're going to go through the basics of pricing just so you can get an idea of, what pricing really is in the food industry. So the food industry relies on numbers. Everything is a number. There's a ton of analysis, and even pennies make a difference. So a couple of examples here. If you can save a penny on 50,000 units that you make across the entire year, you save $500. But if you build that out into saving a quarter on 50,000 units, you have $12,500 worth of savings. So every penny counts in pricing and food manufacturing, and really in any manufacturing. Where you can shave those pennies off, they eventually become nickels, dimes, and quarters, and you end up saving a lot of money over the long run. And a lot of people, when they start talking about food product pricing, they get confused with margin versus markup. So markup is something you find in, clothing retailers, whereas margin is the food industry. They run on margin and not markup. So in the two examples I have here, you've got 50% margin, so your cost is $1.50. A 50% margin is $3, and you make $1.50 per unit. If you took that same example and used 50% markup at your cost as $1.50, your price would be $2.25 because you multiply $1.50 times 1.5, which is a 50% markup, and your profit per unit falls to 75%. If you use markup in your pricing, you're going to end up at a lower price, but a lower price on the shelf, but also a lower profit per unit. So you want to make sure that when you're calculating your price, and I'll show you how to do that later in the classes, your profit per unit needs to be calculated based on margin, and that's for everybody in the food distribution channel. So what influences pricing? There's a couple of things. There's shipping and freight. So if you're buying 100 pounds of dried mango and you want to, ship that from California to Chicago, the freight to ship that mango is incorporated into that product cost for your mango and ultimately your total product cost. So because it costs you money to get there, so that's incorporated in your cost of goods sold. There's also promotions that influences pricing, whether at the retail level on the shelf or the promotion and how it affects you as a manufacturer. And we can get into that a little bit later too. There's also labor. So if you're making your own product, maybe you're charging yourself $15 or paying yourself $15 an hour, or you might have a team of 3 to 5 people who help you at $10 an hour. That labor fluctuation and the amount of units you can produce in that same amount of time is going to fluctuate, which is ultimately going to impact your total product cost. And then you've got the market. It's kind of the biggest influencer of pricing on this list. What will your customers pay? Are they going to pay $8.99 for a jar of hot fudge sauce, or are they going to pay $15.99 for rotisserie chicken with mashed potatoes and peas? I mean, you just don't know. So that's why test marketing is super important, and finding out the right price that is going to make your company go to the next level is definitely important before you kind of push from a local to regional to national level. And then you've got the distribution channel, which is basic pricing here. You are the manufacturer. You sell to a distributor. The distributor sells to a retailer, and the retailer ultimately sells to the customer. Now that green box that you see on the screen there, that represents the food brokers. You could have an independent food broker who sells to distributors and to retailers, and they generally take a couple of percentage points on commission, but they have the industry connections that you may not have starting out. And every step in this process from manufacturer to customer has to make money. So that's why your price goes higher and higher and higher. Now, that being said, you could skip over a couple of these channels and you could go manufacturer to customer. That's direct to consumer. You could also skip your distributor and go right to the retailers. You might be in 10 to 15 or 20 high turn retailers in your area, and you deliver to all of them. That means you're able to price your product a little bit higher, which ultimately means that you're able to make more money going direct to retail or direct to customers. Then there's a little chart here of cost versus price on the shelf. The trick in the industry is to multiply your product cost by 4, which roughly determines your shelf price. That's based on general industry margins. So for example, if you made your product for $2.25, it would retail for $9. If you made it for $3, it would retail for $12. And these dollars probably wouldn't be whole. They'd be rounded to 99 or 95 cents. But you can see that if you really want to sell your product for $3.99 on the shelf every day low price, your cost has to hover somewhere around $1. And that's good to know from a manufacturing perspective as well as a costing perspective. So determining your price is what you can make it for. So you could make a jar of hot chili sauce for $1.57. But if your customers are only willing to pay $1.99, well, that's not really going to work for you. And you might also want to look at the competition. You could have some big national manufacturer making hot chili sauce that is at $2.99 on the shelf, but you are at $5.99 on the shelf. That may be a very big discrepancy in what customers are willing to pay, because generally the premium that customers are willing to pay is about 20 to 30% for a specialty product. So you kind of want to land in that range if you can. With that being said, there are a lot of companies out there who do sell super premium items. I think Jenny's Ice Cream is a really good example. They sell their ice cream pints for $10 to $12 at retail. And I know you can get a half a gallon of Friendlies for $1.99. So there are companies kind of bucking the trend and selling their products at a super premium price. So what's coming up in this course? There's a lot of little sections because pricing does affect a lot of what you do as a food company. You've got how to calculate your cost of goods sold. This is going to calculate your total product cost. So if you held your product in your hand, this is how much it would cost. How your price is ultimately impacted by different scenarios. How you're pricing for promotions and commissions. And definitely ways to reduce your cost of goods sold. That last point is super important. Basically, the rule of thumb, as you noticed in the last chart, is if you reduced your cost by a quarter, you reduce your price on your shelf by about $1. So every quarter in reduction is $1 in reduction on the shelf. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming up in the How to Price Your Food Product course, so stay tuned.